All right. Let's just make sure I'm going live. So you catch in and see me looking down. I'm looking at my phone to see when I go live. Also getting an idea of the time frame. There we go. Live already. Nice. All right. So, hey guys. Welcome to Chiefsman's Corner Live. I'm coming to you unscripted once again. I'm trying out a slightly different format. I am Coach Winuvas of the Denver Broncos for this season. And welcome to Chiefsman's Corner, the worst podcast available for the WFL, one of the better leagues around. So, and yeah, I'm going to drink on camera too. I do have YouTube pulled up. So if guys jump in and want to chit chat, feel free to. I do have it open and available and near me on my laptop. It's going to be a slightly different format this go around. I did not realize we were finishing week 1 right now. I thought the game was going to be later on, and I just got notification that we are in week 2. So I'm actually changing the format real quick on the fly because I intended on just kind of really making this a really short, small, sweet show. But hey, you know what? We have week 1 stuff. I will not have players of the podcast. I normally love to do those things, but right now, considering I just found out week 1 was over with, I don't have time to go and research these things. But I will do something I used to do for a lot of my Chiefsman's Corners way back in the day, and I'm going to bring back something I haven't done in a very long time, which is game-by-game breakdowns of any user-related game. This includes user versus CPU, and obviously user versus user. This will not include the CPU versus CPU games, but I will bring them up, and I'll show you what I mean right now. We have on the docket, first game up, Seattle versus San Francisco. 35-21 was your final there. And going into the stats, CPU Seahawks had a good game with Cameron Ward going 23 of 40 for 282 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception on the day. Kenneth Walker doing most of the work on the ground, 13 carries, 59 yards, no touchdowns, however. DK Metcalf receiving most of the love in the air game, getting 7 catches for 108 yards, but Tyler Lockett did the heavy lifting, getting 2 of the 3 Cameron Ward touchdowns, 5 catches for 92 yards for Lockett. The other touchdown by Will Dissly, tight end, getting 3 catches for 26 yards. On the defensive side of the ball, not a lot of sacks here to record, but Jordan Brooks did lead the team in tackles and no interceptions for the Seattle Seahawks defense in their loss to the 49ers. And Coach Rim goes to 1-0 on the season. Trey Lance had him a very good game, going 14 of 16, highly efficient, and getting 3 touchdowns to go with no interceptions on 194 yards passing. Didn't throw the ball a lot, but apparently didn't need to because he scored big. Elijah Mitchell gets 16 carries, 106 yards, and 1 touchdown. Debo Samuel gets the other one on a 4-yard scamper there close to the end zone. Tyrion Davis-Price gets the other 4 carries, and Trey Lance had a bunch of quarterback kneel downs, I'm guessing. Maybe some sacks, I'm not real sure. 6 carries, -7 yards there. Debo Samuel led the team in yardage. As I see Rustabusta here getting his participation points. Thank you. I see your comments. Debo Samuel getting most of the yardage there, 71 yards on 3 catches and 1 of the touchdowns. The other touchdown going to, or one of the other 2 touchdowns going to George Kittle, and the third one going to newly signed wide receiver Sterling Shepard. Brandon Ayuk and George Kittle each had 4 catches to lead the team in receptions, but Debo Samuel led the team in yardage. Defensively speaking, Nick Bosa had a sack in this game. Troy Beckham had a sack in this game. Samson Ekubom had a sack in this game. There's a 4-way tie for team lead in tackles. And the 1 interception was gotten by Marcus Epps at free safety. So there's your report there. San Francisco comes in, division matchup against the Seahawks, does well in a 31-25 win over those Seahawks. 49ers move to 1-0. As we move to the Jaguars, let me close this out. As we move to Jaguars versus Patriots, poor Patriots, they are just in a losing funk here. 28-10 is your final as new Jaguars owner Ches K.E. moving over from the Eagles. I guess he got tired of that brutal division, so he finally moved out and decided to try and take over the AFC South. Good luck with Juke and Talk there, Chess. I wish you well. In your first game, though, Trevor Lawrence, very efficient, just like with Trey Lance. 16 of 20, 257 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Travis Etienne carried the rock 17 times for 72 yards and a touchdown. Blake Corum gets the other carries as well as Trevor Lawrence a little bit. Blake Corum did not have much in this game. Travis Etienne did the lion's share of the workload in the rushing game. In the receiving game, Calvin Ridley is your leader in yardage with 98 yards on 3 receptions. Christian Kirk, however, had the most receptions, 5 for 75. No touchdowns, though. Ridley did get a touchdown in this game. Logan Thomas gets 1 catch, but it's a good one. It's a touchdown. And Travis Etienne also got a touchdown on 3 receptions. Defensively for your Jaguars, lots and lots and lots and lots of sacks. Oh, my Lord in heaven. Olakun had a sack. Allen had a sack and a half. Devin Lloyd had 2 sacks. James Wilbur had 2.5 sacks. Trayvon Walker had a sack and a half. Devon Hamilton had half a sack. Everybody had sacks. Shaquille Griffin had an interception in this game. All in a rout over the New England Patriots, who looked like they were bamboozled all game long. Poor CPU Patriots. Mac Jones, 25 for 37, 201 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Looks like they couldn't get going all day long. Run game was nothing to write home about. They only had 7 carries all game. Damian Harris had all 7 of them for 49 yards. Hunter Henry leads the team in actually tied for the team lead in receptions with Damian Harris. Hunter Henry had 70 yards, but did not have the touchdown, as that goes to newly signed wide receiver Keenan Allen, formerly of the Los Angeles Chargers. 6 catches for 41 yards in his New England debut in a losing effort. Does get the only touchdown from Mac Jones in that game. Your team lead in tackles is shared by Kyle Fuller and newly signed linebacker Josie Jewell. Dietrich Wise Jr. had the only sack of the game, and of course no interceptions. In a pretty much stellar effort there from the Jaguars as they pull out a win and go to 1-0 in the season. 28-10 is your final there. We move on to the next game on the docket. Rams versus Chiefs, and this is the first CPU victory here as the Los Angeles Rams win 27-24 over the Kansas City Chiefs. For the victorious Rams, Matthew Stafford had a great game, going 25 of 37 for 272 and 2 touchdowns to go with an interception. Devin Singletary, newly signed, 19 carries, 84 yards, no touchdowns, but did do a lot of work on the ground for this Los Angeles rushing attack. Receiving wise, it's the Cooper Kupp show. 10 catches, 114 yards, and a touchdown. Michael Mayer, newly acquired from the Denver Broncos in a trade to get Aaron Donald to Denver. Michael Mayer shows out in his first game, 6 catches for 61 yards and a touchdown, showing Denver fans what they're missing out on. Defensively speaking, it looks like they don't miss a beat without Aaron Donald. Malik Reed has 2 sacks. Bobby Brown III has a half a sack, and Ashton Davis has half a sack as well. And Mike Hughes, Jalen Ramsey, and Mekhi Gardner each get interceptions of Patrick Mahomes, in the 27-24 victory. For the losing Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes did not have his greatest game accuracy-wise. Looks like 18 of 30, 298 yards, a lot of yards, 2 touchdowns, but 3 interceptions. Isaiah Pacheco, 11 carries for 45 yards. Clyde Edwards-Helaire had the other carry there for the Chiefs. Mecole Hardman leads the team in receiving yards with 93. However, Travis Kelce had the most receptions with 6 for 86 and 1 of 2 Mahomes touchdowns. Noah Gray, the other tight end, getting the other touchdown. Defensively speaking, a lot of half sacks there for the Kansas City defense. Got a few players, with 4 tackles to lead the team. And Juan Thornhill got the only interception to Matthew Stafford. Unfortunately, it is in a losing effort as the Kansas City Chiefs fall 27-24. Still early in the season for Banshee-Man and his Chiefs, but that is a hard one to swallow from a CPU squad. Next up, we have the Dallas Cowboys and the Tennessee Titans with new owner Jeremiah there in Tennessee, getting a little bit of a WFL education from Cooley G and his Cowboys. 33-13 is your final there. For the victorious Cowboys, newly acquired Will Levis, the guy he fought hard to get, 19 of 27, 277 yards, 2 touchdowns, but 3 interceptions on the day. Troy Pollard and Rashad Penny share the rushing load for Dallas. Pollard 13 carries, 44 yards. Rashad Penny 6 carries, 36 yards. However, neither one of them scored a touchdown. That went to Eric Gray with his one single 4-yard carry. Dallas receiving wise, CeeDee Lamb 6 carries, 95 yards, and a touchdown on the day. The other touchdown gotten by Michael Gallup on 5 catches, 64 yards. Dalton Schultz at tight end, 4 catches for 85 yards, and that's all of substance for the receiving attack for the Dallas Cowboys. Trayvon Diggs and Chris Barnes shared the tackle lead here. However, Trayvon Diggs had an interception as well as James Bradbury Jr. And that's it, 2 interceptions, I'm sorry. Unfortunately, one of those was a pick 6 for James Bradbury as he returned it to the house in the 33-13 victory. For the losing Titans, No shame in that. Justin Callaway, rookie, had a rough first start. Welcome to the WFL, son, out of Iowa State, 13 of 20, 200 yards, 1 touchdown, but 2 interceptions. Ryan Tannehill did have a throw in this game for 7 yards in relief of Callaway. Derrick Henry was bottled up pretty well, 7 carries for 33 yards. Did score a touchdown, however. Justin Schaefer. Why is Justin Schaefer on here? He's on my team. That's another issue with Madden. Tennessee receiving-wise, T. Higgins, 5 catches for 111 yards. Adam Troutman, 4 catches for 22 yards. Ignore the 3 catches for 51 yards from Justin Schaefer because that's not accurate because he's not on the Titans. Zach Cunningham on the defense and Christian Fulton each had 2 tackles. James Wilbur, rookie, 4th-round pick out of Ohio State, showing out well, 2.5 sacks in his debut, having a very good, albeit in a losing effort. Christian Fulton, Kevin Byard, and Amani Hooker get interceptions of Will Levis in the losing effort. You got to like that back end getting picks, but unfortunately you can't turn over the ball yourself, and you definitely can't give up points to anybody in the WFL, and that's just a hard lesson to learn, but a good lesson to learn. Hopefully Jeremiah gets a lot better as the season moves along and enjoys his experience in WFL. Welcome to the WFL, rookie. We have a 24-7 victory of the Chicago Bears in Smash over the CPU Minnesota Vikings. For those Vikings, Ben Pierman goes 28 of 47 for 360 yards, 1 touchdown to go with 3 interceptions. Dalvin Cook did not have much time to carry the rock, and when he did, he didn't have much room to carry the rock. 7 carries, only 11 yards. Justin Jefferson did the heavy lifting here. 7 catches, 147 yards. TJ Hawkinson also had some work to do, as well as Dalvin Cook. But the only touchdown scored was by Kerry Blackwell, another rookie. 3 catches, 48 yards on the day. Defensively, tackles was led by Eric Kendricks. Daniel Hunter had a sack on the day, and looks like no interceptions from that Minnesota defense. So a real toothless Minnesota defense doesn't help against a quality opponent like Smash, who's just taking up where he left off last season, albeit improved. Justin Fields, 12 of 22, so not the greatest accuracy day for him, but he didn't really have to be when you have an offense like the Minnesota Vikings that throws 3 interceptions. 12 of 22, 2 touchdowns, no picks, 215 yards. David Montgomery, 12 carries for 57 yards. Cam Akers, 10 for 31. Kalen Ballage, though, had the only touchdown of the day for the Chicago Bears. Receiving-wise, Darnell Mooney led the team in receptions and yards and touchdowns. Had the only 2 touchdowns from Justin Fields on 5 catches for 102 yards. And defensively, Nick Hampton, Jeffrey Simmons, Darrell Taylor, and Christian Gonzalez all had a sack on the day. And Jalen Johnson had himself a game with 3 interceptions. If I was doing players of the podcast, that'd probably be a front runner for a defensive player of the podcast. I'm just saying. 24-7 victory. Clean look for Smash as he jumps atop the division. Next up, Pittsburgh and Las Vegas, the Raiders and Steelers. Man, this used to be a rivalry back in the 70s and early 80s. And unfortunately now it's not so much a rivalry anymore. And it's not because of La Migra. It's just because the Raiders and Steelers, Raiders in particular, are kind of in real life in a hole. Steelers are kind of middling right now as well. So definitely not where they used to be back in their heyday. But this is today. The Raiders had a tough day. Tom Brady showing his age here. 4 of 11 for 66 yards and an interception. Josh Jacobs did work on the ground, though. 12 carries, 113 yards and a touchdown. Just did not get any help from the passing game, unfortunately. Devontae Adams was the only one that caught more than 1 pass in the passing game of the 4 passes completed. Divine Diablo had 6 catches on the day, or 6 tackles on the day, excuse me. Trevon Mooring had an interception. No sacks registered by the Saints defense, by the Raiders defense. Tough sledding to get some pressure there. You've got to get pressure on Chill and the Pittsburgh attack. Otherwise, he's just going to bombard you, and you've got to get some coverage there on the back end. Anthony Richardson, the deep bomb specialist. Not so deep this game. 13 of 22, 211 yards, so held well in check. 2 touchdowns to 1 interception. Najee Harris carrying the rock, though, for the show. 20 carries, 101 yards, and a touchdown. Zach Charbonnet, 10 carries for 35 yards in a backup role. Receiving wise, tight end Sam Laportu, probably a rookie, I'm guessing. 3 catches for 50 yards. Deontay Johnson right behind him, 3 for 46. Your 2 touchdowns, though, come from George Pickens and Quez Watkins. George had 2 catches for 33 yards. Quez Watkins had 2 catches for 16 yards. Defensively, Alex Highsmith led the show. So all that talk about Pittsburgh trading him in the offseason, why did they bother? Because he had 5 tackles and 2 sacks in this game. They should just keep him. Eli Apple had a sack. Cameron Hayward had a sack as well. TJ Watt had an interception and 2 touchdowns, 1 on a fumble recovery and 1 on a interception. So that thing I said about Jalen Johnson being player of the podcast, well, again, not seeing a whole lot of offensive players of the podcast, but I'm seeing a couple good defensive ones. TJ Watt stands out as well in a 38-10 victory over the Raiders. CPU game versus the Saints. Saints versus Eagles. This was CPU last season, but now it's not. Saints win 33-17 over the Philadelphia Eagles. Jameis Winston coming back to the Dome as a member of the Philadelphia Eagles does not get a warm welcome. 19 of 37, 211 yards, 1 touchdown to go with 1 pick. Miles Sanders, 10 carries for 35 yards and a touchdown. Bijan Robinson, 6 for 22. Jameis running for his life, 3 for 16. Not a good rushing attack there from the Eagles. Doesn't help out your passing game. A.J. Brown, 5 catches for 84 yards. However, the only touchdown on the day went to Dallas Goedert, who had 3 catches for only 16 yards. Donovan Peoples-Jones and Devontae Smith also had receptions in this game for the Eagles passing attack. Jabril Peppers leads the team in tackles for the Eagles. Also had 2 interceptions. Unfortunately, it was not enough. Jalen Carter had a sack on the day as well, but the Eagles were pretty much held in check, it looks like, both on offense and defense. Jared Goff in his first game as a New Orleans Saint has a good game. 17 of 27, 228, 2 touchdowns, but 2 interceptions. Alvin Kamara, 19 carries for $125 and a touchdown. Good numbers for Alvin Kamara. James Robinson has 4 carries for 4 yards as well. Chris Olave leads the team with 5 catches for 107 and a touchdown, but don't rule out Michael Thomas, the Ohio State alum product, as well as Olave. Thomas had 4 catches for 60 yards and a touchdown on the day. Terrence Marshall also brings in 4 catches for 41 yards. Defensively, Ben Blanton had 5 tackles and 2 sacks in the game. Jocelyn Roy had a sack. Felix and Duki Uzuma had half a sack. Cameron Jordan had 2 sacks. Frankie Louver had half a sack. 1 interception by Kirby Joseph. Man, the Saints defense went roughshod, and that looks good in a 33-17 win in the Dome. Hachi gets himself a good win and gets himself to 1-0 on the season. Next up on the docket, we have the Cincinnati Bengals and the Washington Commanders. If Russ is still here, here's your game we get to talk about. 1-0 on the season is Russ as he goes 38-24 win over the new Washington Commanders and owner Johnny P. Joe Burrow for these Bengals did not throw much, but apparently did not have to. 9 for 13, 230 yards, 1 touchdown. Apparently all his attack was done on the ground. Joe Mixon and Eric Daly in a twin-headed attack. Mixon had 11 carries, 55 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Eric Daly had 11 catches, 41 yards, and a touchdown in a great 2-headed attack there for the Bengals. Receiving-wise, it looks like Evan Ingram did most of the work. 4 catches for 66 yards. However, Tyler Boyd had the only touchdown on a 75-yard bomb. Jamar Chase also had 3 catches for 72 yards. Defensively, Logan Wilson at outside linebacker had a sack and a pass deflection and 4 tackles to lead the team in tackles. Jermaine Pratt also had a sack as well as B.J. Hill. Interceptions from Von Bell, Cam Taylor-Britt, and 2 from Daxton Hill, including a pick 6 from Cam Taylor-Britt, iced the game for the Bengals against the Washington Commanders, who had Jacoby Brissett at the helm. Wow, he didn't throw it a million times. Yeah, the Cincinnati Bengals won by running the ball. It's amazing how it works. Jacoby Brissett, 25 of 40, 313 yards, 2 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, though. That is pretty brutal, and that will hurt you more often than not, especially in the WFL. Ezekiel Elliott, 14 carries for 44 yards. Brian Robinson Jr., 4 carries for 13 yards. Ezekiel Elliott did have a touchdown in this game, however. Terry McLaurin, all-world, 7 catches, $127 and 2 touchdowns. Probably would state for the record, he'd probably be close to my offensive player of the podcast if I had one. Because that's a pretty dominant performance. I think I've had one other one in the receiver category, but it was Cooper Kupp, a CPU. Odell Beckham had 6 catches for 61 yards. De'Ami Brown had a catch. Jahan Dotson had a catch. It looks like Johnny is really good at spreading the ball out. He's just got to avoid those turnovers. He could have a really good passing attack if he can keep the ball out of the other team's hands. Cole Holcomb, 5 tackles to lead the team in tackles. And you also have a sack there from Cole Holcomb. You have half a sack from Jonathan Allen. You have a sack from Christian Wilkins. You have a sack from Bobby Wagner. Unfortunately, it was not enough in the effort as they fall to the Cincinnati Bengals 38-24. Commanders fall to 0-1 early in the season. Next game on the docket, game of the week potential probably. Actually, I think our game of the week was earlier. According to Neon Sports, I feel like this is probably our game of the week. These are two really good owners going at it, both in the AFC. They're going to be fighting for playoff spots. They're going to be probably fighting in the playoffs if they both make it. Miami, though, falls in this one to the Houston Texans, 24-23. I'm guessing on the last second field goal. I didn't catch this one, but this one looks like it was one that was worth watching. For the Dolphins, Tua Tagovailoa, 16-22, 193 yards and 2 touchdowns on the day, no interceptions. Jahmyr Gibbs, a young rookie, 14 carries, 58 yards. Bo Scarborough, the Alabama alum, 5 carries for 37 yards. Michael Bullock also had 5 carries for 35 yards. So a good rushing attack there from the Dolphins. Receiving-wise, Tyreek Hill had 5 catches for 98 yards and a touchdown. Jalen Waddle, Alabama alum, had 4 catches for 34 yards and a touchdown. Hunter Long, the tight end, had 3 catches for 30 yards, trying to replace the void left by Mike Gesicki after he had to be cut into free agency. Javon Holland and Deion Jones lead the team in tackles this game with 4 each. No sacks, which definitely probably hurt the Dolphins' chances to win this ball game. Not saying it was the total cause. 1 interception for Javon Holland, though, there on the defensive side of the ball. So looking at Javon Holland was a ball hawk this game. Unfortunately, it just wasn't quite enough to push his Dolphins over the limit. Bryce Young for the Houston Texans picking up right where he left off. The Alabama alum went 14 of 18 for 252 yards, touchdown to go with an interception. But Blackhawk doesn't make his living throwing the ball. He makes his living running the ball. And Dameon Pierce had 14 carries for 82 yards and 2 touchdowns. And in a nice 1-2 punch, Antonio Gibson, 8 carries for 44 yards. Bryce Young also had to scramble for 8 yards in this game. Marquise Brown is his deep threat, and Marquise Brown delivered here. 4 catches, 147 yards, and a touchdown with a long of 56 yards. He had DJ Chark for 3 catches, 46 yards, and Devin Duvernay, 3 catches for 35 yards. That is a dangerous Houston Texans team. If Hawk can put it together in the passing game, his run game is on point, and if you fall behind, he will just ground you into the dirt. But now he's got some spark on the offense with Marquise Brown and DJ Chark to hopefully get the job done, and Devin Duvernay, which is a new signing, to get the job done in the air. If he can figure out a way to get it done in the air and keep teams off balance, that is a dangerous combination there in Houston in the AFC South. Devin Bush leads the team on the Texans, in tackles with 4. Fletcher Cox had half a sack. Emmanuel Ogbah had a sack and a half. No interceptions there for the Houston defense, but they managed to eke out a victory anyway. 24-23 is your final, as Houston moves to 1-0, and Dolphins take a hard luck loss and move to 0-1 on the season. Next on the docket, we have the Detroit Lions and the New York Jets, who are now CPU controlled. And Polio gave them hell, and 38-17 is your final. C.J. Stroud, however, did not have a good game. 8 of 15, 139 yards, 2 touchdowns, but 1 interception. Not a good game overall, but they made up for it in the run game. A.J. Dillon, 15 carries, 109 yards, 2 touchdowns. Keenan Nwagwu, I probably pronounced that wrong. I'm sorry. I'm not professional. 7 carries for 50 yards as well. So a good rushing attack there from the Detroit Lions. In the receiving game, newly acquired Amari Cooper had the lead in catches and yards. 3 catches, 55 yards, and a touchdown. Jameson Williams nabbed the other touchdown from C.J. Stroud. 2 catches, 51 yards, and a couple of catches there from some other folks. Miles Jack led the team in tackles in this game. No sacks from the Detroit defense, it looks like. But Kenny Moore, newly acquired from the Colts, did get an interception and a couple of deflections in this game. So a good showing in his first game in the Honolulu blue and gray. For the New York Jets, Jalen Hurts goes 23 of 32 for 250 yards and a touchdown to go with an interception. Breece Hall goes 17 carries for 119 yards and a touchdown, continuing his assault on the WFL record books as far as running goes. Garrett Wilson, 4 catches for 81 yards, led the team in yards, but did not lead the team in receptions. That went to Breece Hall, who had 8 catches for 59 yards out of the backfield. Mike Gesicki, who was cut after this game to be signed by the Atlanta Falcons. Apparently, the front office missed the fact that Gesicki had previously agreed to a contract with the Falcons, and so the Jets picked him up, did not realize that there was a contract in play for the Falcons. So after this game, they had to have a talking with the league office and cut him and return him to Falcons property, because he was actually Falcons property per waiver wire. But Gesicki in this game had 5 catches for 49 yards. Elijah Moore, though, had the only touchdown for the Jets through the air in this game. 3 catches for 32 yards. Defensively, C.J. Mosley and Jalen Jones had the lead in tackles with 3 apiece. No sacks from the New York defense, but 1 interception from C.J. Mosley. Unfortunately, it was not enough to stem the tide of a very talented, top-heavy Detroit Lions team as they win going away 38-17. Your final there. Lions 1-0, tied for a top of the NFC North. Moving on to a low-scoring game between your Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Coach Kendrow and the Atlanta Falcons and Coach Studley. And do I say upset? I don't feel like this is an upset because Atlanta can hang with anybody. But it's got to be an upset if you upset the Super Bowl champs week 1. So I'm going to say Falcons upset the Buccaneers. 19-10 is your final here. Coach Studley takes the Falcons to 1-0. Kendrow falls to 0-1, but don't count him out by any stretch. It's still very early. For the Falcons, Desmond Ridder, 16-23, 197 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception on the day. DeAndre Swift, 10 carries for 37 yards. Not much in the running game there. Chris Rodriguez Jr., 6 carries for 22 yards and a touchdown. The receiving game is all Kyle Pitts, 5 catches, 97 yards. Drake London had the other big catches for 4 catches, 43 yards and a touchdown. The lone touchdown throw by Desmond Ridder on the day. For the defense, Michael Walker and Quincy Clark each tied with the tackle lead with 5 each. Michael Walker at middle linebacker there did have an interception, as well as Richie Grant and John Johnson III and Troy Anderson, a previous award winner on that defense. For the Tampa Bay, I almost said Tampa Bay Lightning, for the Buccaneers, Dan Sheehan was the starter, and apparently he got yanked for Kyle Trask, or vice versa. I'm not real sure. But Dan Sheehan and Kyle Trask did not have a good game. They combined for 18 of 32 for 171 yards and 4 interceptions. That's never going to win you any games. I'm not sure if Trask started and was pulled. I'm not sure if he got injured. But either way, Dan Sheehan definitely did not have – he had himself a game he would rather forget. Leonard Fournette, 15 carries, 83 yards, and a touchdown to pace the rushing game for Tampa Bay. Rashad White, 6 carries, for 57 yards. Receiving-wise, Russell Gage had 9 catches for 70 yards. Godwin and Fournette had 3 catches each. No touchdowns, though, from any of the receivers in this game. Devin White led the team in tackles with 4. He also had a sack and an interception, doing everything he can to keep his team in it. Shaquille Barrett had half a sack, as well as Logan Hall and Moro Ojomo. But unfortunately, it was not enough to stem the tide against a very game and tough Falcons squad as they fall 19-10. When you have 4 interceptions in a tight defensive game, it is hard to keep up. Tampa Bay will bounce back, and this is not a surprise for me from Atlanta. I think they're gonna challenge for a playoff spot. And they've started with a bang, putting down the current reigning defending champs, the Buccaneers. As we move on to my gang, the Denver Broncos surprisingly go to 1-0 against the Arizona Cardinals. 24-17 is your final here. Kyler Murray, 30 of 42 for 310 yards, 2 touchdowns, go with 2 picks. James Conner did not do much late in the ground game. He started off hot early. However, he dwindled down quickly. I believe his first 2 carries for 21 yards, and then after that, he pretty much didn't have anything else. Mainly because the Arizona went to the passing game a lot. And I can understand why, because they threw it up to DeAndre Hopkins, and he smoked Patrick Surtain bad. 5 catches, 149 yards, and 2 touchdowns. James Conner out of the backfield, 8 catches for 67 yards. David Njoku had 9 catches for 46 yards, and Nico Collins was another thorn in the side of the Broncos secondary. 6 for 35 there. Not a lot of yards, but definitely made a lot of key third down conversions. JT Ankrum led the team at Arizona in tackles. They also had Budda Baker with a sack, and Andre Carter and Zaven Collins with half a sack each. They also had a bad throw from me, not Justin Herbert, to Isaiah Simmons. It was on a trail route. I hit the wrong button corresponding to the receiver. Cortland Sutton, the guy I wanted to throw to, the guy I intended to throw to, was wide open. Unfortunately, his icon was R1, and I hit X, which was the trailer in that play, which was Justin Schaefer, who was well covered by Isaiah Simmons, and Isaiah Simmons picked it off. I threw it right to him, so he should have picked it off. So Isaiah Simmons had that interception, but it wasn't enough to get the game for the Arizona Cardinals as they fall by a touchdown. Justin Herbert in his first game in the new Denver Broncos colors, 17 of 24, 218 yards, 2 touchdowns to go with 1 pick. That shouldn't have happened. Javonte Williams had himself a ball game. 13 carries, 95 yards. Didn't quite hit a buck 100 on the game, but was a very key threat, especially late in that ball game. Zach Evans and Terrence Armstead each had 4 carries. Cortland Sutton in the passing game, 5 catches for 84 yards. Jerry Jeudy, 5 catches for 73 yards. Cortland Sutton had the only 2 touchdowns from Justin Herbert. Deion Kane had 3 catches for 26 yards. Justin Safer did not have 3 catches for 51 yards. He had 1 catch for 14 yards or 12 yards. Unfortunately, there's an issue with Justin Safer on Neon Sports where he is confused. But anyway, Eric Klein led the team in tackles. The rookie had 6 starting in that middle linebacker spot. Also had a key pass deflection on a 3rd down. Caden Stearns had 1 of 2 interceptions on the day. Patrick Surtain, though, had a key one that put us up 17-3 before the end of the first half. Picked off, basically beat DeAndre Hopkins on a play. Snuck in front of him, picked the ball off, and ran it back to the house about 20 yards out for a pick 6. That was huge for us, and that ended up being, honestly, the difference in the game. Randy Gregory and Aaron Donald share the only sack of the game for our side. We had trouble getting pressure all day. Hopefully, we'll have a better show in week 2 against the Chargers. Next up, we have a user game. 25-23 is your final between the Cleveland Browns and the New York Giants. The AFC champions start off hot, 1-0. Beating the New York Giants, a very good squad led by Coach Clyde, one of the better users in our league, always at the top of his division, always at the top of the standings. Daniel Jones, 14 of 21, 170 yards, 3 touchdowns, but 1 interception. Saquon Barkley, 17 carries for 63 yards to pace the rushing attack for the Giants. Cam Haywood, rookie, and Zay Flowers each had 4 receptions. Cam had 66 yards on the day. However, the touchdowns come from Andre Iosivas on 1 catch for 21 yards, Saquon Barkley on a catch out of the backfield for 6 yards, and on a very short pass to Lawrence Cager, the tight end, for a whopping 0 yards. Darius Slay, newly acquired in free agency this offseason, 4 tackles to lead the team in tackles. No interceptions, though. That went to other newly signed cornerback, Travarius Ward, who had 3 tackles and an interception on the day, as well as 3 deflections and a fumble recovery. It was forced by Trenton Simpson, one of the All-Pros from last season at middle linebacker. Aziz Ojulari and Micah McFadden each had half a sack on the day, as well as Aaron Robinson having a pick as well. For the Browns, in victory, Dak Prescott, new quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. Dak Prescott, 22 of 34, 203 yards, 2 touchdowns to go with 2 interceptions. Nick Chubb did not do much in this game, and this rushing attack did not do much in this game, as I guess he was behind a lot. Not sure about this one, but definitely a lot of throws compared to a short amount of runs. Carlos Dawson had 5 catches for 51 yards. Cameron Latu, though, had 1 of 2 touchdowns on the day, tight end. 2 catches for 34 yards for Latu. 2 catches for 6 yards from Grant Davis out of the backfield. Rookie A.T. Perry had 2 catches for 49 yards in his debut as well. Defensively, Stephon Gilmore, newly signed to the Cleveland Browns, had 5 tackles to lead the team and an interception. Looks like we had Latu with 1 sack, as well as Myles Garrett. No shock there on Myles Garrett with the sacks. So the one interception was by Stephon Gilmore. Looks like it was a tough, hard-fought game, and it probably came down to a last-second field goal, which is always a good way to see 2 good owners battle it out. But Waffles comes out the victor on this one, 25-23 is your final. Cleveland moves to 1-0. Giants move to 0-1, but that won't last long, I promise you that. Last game that was played this week. Second to last game we'll go over. Indianapolis versus Buffalo. Buffalo wins going away, 35-23. A little bit of a surprise, maybe. I don't want to put too cold down. To me, that's a little bit of a surprise. So we'll see how the numbers break down. But Malik Willis looks like he had himself a decent game, but not a great game. 16-24, 229 yards, a touchdown, but 2 interceptions. Jonathan Taylor looks like he was pretty well held in check. 11 carries, 56 yards, and a touchdown. James Cook had 2 carries for 13 yards, and Malik Willis had his carry as well. Brandon Cooks, in his debut with Indianapolis, 4 catches, 62 yards. Pittman had 5 catches for 49 yards. Michael Pittman, that is. The sole touchdown comes from newly signed free agent Cole Kmet. 2 catches, 38 yards, and that touchdown. Julian Blackman at free safety led the charge in tackles. Chad Muma had the sack on the day. Nick Cross has the only interception on the day for the Colts defense. For Buffalo, Josh Allen had a near-perfect game. That'll help you win games more often than not. 21 of 23, 345 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Holy crap was Josh Allen plugged in. Christian McCaffrey, newly acquired from the 49ers, 19 carries, 97 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Seems like Colt has found something that's cooking. Dalton Kincaid had 6 carries for 23 yards at the tight end spot. I'm guessing fullback runs. Stephon Diggs in the receiving game had 8 catches for 161 yards. Dawson Knox had 9 for 116 and 2 touchdowns. So there's where all your offense is as far as receiving goes. Sidney Carroll led the team in tackles at cornerback, also had an interception. Casey Hayward had an interception as well. And it looks like Morgan Fox was the only one to acquire a sack for the Buffalo defense. In a good win for Tuchel. I'm happy for Tuchel. He usually is one of those guys that is a try-hard. He's a good guy to be around, but sometimes he has rough luck on the sticks. So it's good to see him pull out a W, especially against a guy like Juke, who's he's a pretty good owner. That's a good win for a team that could use some confidence there. The Bills got some confidence. If they get some confidence, they get 21 out of 23 from Josh Allen every game. Look out. That AFC East is going to be interesting for Ross, who is the other user in that conference, or in that division, I should say. Last game with a user involved, and this will wrap up the podcast as I wind it down. Green Bay wins 30-20 over the Carolina Panthers. For the Carolina Panthers, Herndon Hooker, I know it says Hooker, it's Hooker, 17 of 30, 228 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Kareem Hunt had 12 carries for only 11 yards. It looks like Herndon Hooker had most of the carries in that game as far as yardage-wise, so the rushing attack for the Panthers suffered mightily. DJ Moore, 6 catches for 84 yards and 2 touchdowns. Jordan Addison, 4 catches for 83 yards, no touchdowns. DJ Moore had both touchdowns for the Carolina Panthers. Shakir Childs, the rookie, had 5 tackles to lead the team in tackles. Derek Brown looks like the only sack, and the 2 interceptions look like they come from J.C. Horn and Jeremy Chin on the back end. However, it wasn't enough to beat the Packers. And Aaron Rodgers, the ageless one, did not have a good game with touchdowns, but had enough to win the game. 23 of 37, 237, 0 touchdowns, but 2 interceptions. Aaron Jones, 20 carries, 55 yards, 3 touchdowns on the game. There's where your points are. 6 carries for 42 yards from Kendre Miller. Christian Watson had himself a ball game. 10 catches, 126 yards, no touchdowns though. Cedric Tillman, 4 for 34 to lead the rest of the receiving attack. On defense, Razul Douglas led the team in tackles at corner with 3 of them. Quay Walker, Kenny Clark, and Preston Smith, as well as Malcolm Rodriguez, logged sacks on the day. No interceptions logged. 2 deflections from Eric Stokes, however, in a team effort defensively and offensively to get a 30-20 win and put the Green Bay Packers at the top of their division, as well as the Lions and as well as the Bears. So it's a 3-way tie early, still very early. But that is your docket. The only games I did not go over in detail would be the game of the week, quote unquote, which is between the Ravens and Chargers, which are both CPU teams. As I come back on camera to basically finalize this out. So that was a different Chiefsman's Corner than what I'm used to doing, at least for this iteration of WFL. I used to do that quite a bit with my Chiefsman's Corners in the past. So I figured with week 1 just ending, I figured I'd do a more detailed breakdown. We don't have a Ask the Chief section. No questions were submitted to me by the time I started the show. I did start a little bit earlier, but I also did a little bit longer because I did a lot more in breakdown details. This probably will not be a normal thing because this does eat a lot of time up, and I don't normally have a lot of time for these podcasts. So this is not a normal thing, but I wanted to do that special for this one. I was going to make it a short one. Ended up being one of my longer podcasts I've ever done. There is no Ask the Chief segment, like I said earlier, but do be aware we are going through the motions as far as incentive plans. We are going through the motions as far as 50% signing sheets and things of that nature, because I will state that any incentives you earn this season will carry over into the first season of Madden 24. So if you earn all Madden status this season, you will have it when we start the new season in Madden 24. So I encourage you, if you want to take advantage of those opportunities that those incentives provide you, I encourage you to do so. I encourage you to contribute content like it's nobody's business, because every bit of content helps, and it makes us look active, and it makes us look good in the Madden community going forward. So definitely, I appreciate your time here tonight. I'm Coach Winuvas of the Denver Broncos. I'm one of the leadership team in the WFL, and I'm rounding this corner down. So until next Monday, guys, the corner is closed.